when you've learned, the more you've studied brain foods and the functionality of optimizing your brain and, living longer and having the function of your brain use, what would you shy away from? What would you say, that's probably the worst thing for your brain, to have functionality and to function longer and live longer with your brain health? What are the main foods you would absolutely never touch? You would never give your family or your kids because you just feel like it's very harmful?
Processed foods. And
any processed foods?
No, we don't eat. I don't eat processed foods. I really try to stick to whole foods.
So does that include that's a cookie, cakes, pastries?
I was just thinking, oh my goodness, this is maybe not true. I do eat crackers occasionally, but I really don't eat a lot of processed foods, and they're mostly minimally processed. And my daughter really loves this peanut butter covered banana bites, so I buy those. But I wouldn't call it a processed food. I mean, it's not fresh from the plant, but it's certainly not burgers or hot dogs or popcorn. And it's just frozen pizza. I don't eat that.
What does processed foods do to brain health?
There is a lot of research showing that the standard American diet, or the SAD diet, is really, really it's really, really bad news for your brain. And we have seen this many times using brain scans. We published this time and time again. Then, well, this may sound biased, but we were using a Mediterranean style pattern as an example of a healthy diet, which is what scientists would tell you. Most scientists really endorse a Mediterranean style diet as a brain healthy diet. And we were comparing the brain scans of people on the Mediterranean diet to those of people of the same exact age, educational level, on a Western diet or on a standard American diet. You could see the difference just by looking at the brains. So if you are...
What do the brains look like on the Mediterranean diet versus
I could show you
the SAD American processed diet? What is it? Just like it's lit up more, it's more rich looking, it's just fuller. What is the difference?
Yeah, so the difference is that the brains of people on the Western diet look older. Just picture that in your mind if you can. And the brain of a 50-year-old person on a Mediterranean style diet looks very full. Like the brain is composed of three different parts, but mostly just two parts. There's brain and then there's fluid inside your head. And you want to have as much brain as you can and as little fluid as you can. I mean, you want to have some fluid because it's protective, but not too much. Mm-hmm. You have more fluid and less brain, it means your brain is shrinking. Like you're losing neuron and fluid is taking over the space.
Oh my gosh.
And if you compare the brain scans, you can tell that people on Western diets show brain shrinkage already in midlife. And that continues over time. And worse than that, and we have published this, the Western diet is associated with the emergence of Alzheimer's plaques already in midlife. So people on Mediterranean diets are basically zero plaques, at least in our hand.
What do you mean by plaques? What does that mean?
Alzheimer's plaques. So Alzheimer's disease, which is the most common form of dementia in the population, is characterized by presence of these plaques inside the brain.
So just a plaque on your teeth, there'd be plaque in your brain.
They're like lesions. Yeah, they're lesions inside the brain. Mm-hmm. That are considered the hallmark or the signature of Alzheimer's disease. For a really, really long time, scientists, everybody thought that Alzheimer's was a disease of old age. And that's because the symptoms become evident when people are in their 70s.
But later. Now people are getting them in their 50s, the plaque buildup.
That's right. So Alzheimer's disease starts with negative changes in the brain decades prior to anyone forgetting keys or forgetting names. That happens in midlife. And the very first signs that we can detect using brain scans are these plaques, these lesions that you can see building up inside your brain. And there's a very clear difference in the timeline for people on Western diet who develop the plaques earlier than people who follow healthier diets.
Wow.
So that's a big flag.
Is there a way if you notice someone's brain scan is shrinking their brain, they're building some of these early stage plaques around their brain, they've got more fluid, less brain matter. Is there a way to reverse that so your brain can actually grow and expand and become healthier and reverse Alzheimer's plaque? Is that possible?
So, well, that's the hope with the vaccinations that we're working on. So scientists have been working on developing vaccines for Alzheimer's disease for a really, really long time. The idea is that if you remove the plaques, your brain will stop deteriorating. But so far, all the clinical trials failed, which is...
In removing the plaques?
No, they've removed the plaques, but they do not reverse dementia or cognitive impairment or the atrophy. So that's disappointing in so many ways. I can't even begin to tell you. But that's another reason why the entire scientific community is now moving towards prevention. People say we're starting too late. We should start treating this when people are younger.
Right. Not when they need it, but it's like when you're...
it's preventative. We want people not to get those plaques. I think that would be ideal.
So when you start to build up these plaques, what I'm hearing you say is you can remove the plaque potentially, but you'll still cannot reverse dementia or Alzheimer. Or are you able to reverse Alzheimer's in some way? Is that possible?
Depends on what you mean by reversing Alzheimer's. So there's Alzheimer's disease, which is the actual pathology, the lesions and plaques and tangles and a bunch of other things. And then there's dementia, which is the clinical syndrome with the symptoms. We can reverse Alzheimer's by removing the plaques, but the problem is that the symptoms don't go away.
Really? So we're unable to reverse the symptoms of dementia currently. Is that right?
Currently, that's right.
No one's had dementia and then reversed it.
Not in clinical trials.
In real life, has someone done this that you're aware of?
I don't think so.
So is there a way to slow it down?
I think I would know about it.
Is there a way to slow this process down so it doesn't get worse and it's kind of like a manageable symptoms where it's like, okay, I'm forgetting or I'm losing memory, but it's not worse and worse and worse every day. Have we seen that?
So there are some medicines that we have. There are Alzheimer's drugs that slow down progression, like donepezil or Aricept, like the most common. Well, we only have 4 medications approved for Alzheimer's disease. We have acetylcholinesterase inhibitors, which are the most common. We have memantine for some cases. They do slow down progression but they do not fix the problem. They stop it.
Where is Alzheimer's the most prevalent in the world? Is it in the USA? Is it in Europe? Is it in what countries or regions of the world has it most?
The United States are quite on top. And then there are other countries as well in Europe, some places in Asia. I think industrialized countries in general experience higher rates of dementia. And one thing that I would like to point out that is against my work, so that Alzheimer's disease affects women more than men, or affects more women than men, to say more correctly. Yes.
Why is that?
One thing that people don't realize is that almost 2/3 of all Alzheimer's patients are women.
Really?
So for every man suffering from Alzheimer's, there are 2 women. And that's one of the reasons that I started looking into Alzheimer's disease, is that I have a family history of Alzheimer's disease that really affects the women in my family. So if you can't believe it, my grandmother was one of 4 siblings, 3 sisters and 1 brother. All 3 sisters developed Alzheimer's disease and died of it, whereas the brother was spared. So for me, that was terrifying, for my mom as well. And I started asking questions. I was like, why? Does it matter? Is it just my family? Number one, am I screwed?
Is it a gene that your parents have that then you're going to have no matter what? Because I think that's a fear for a lot of people. Like, oh, my grandfather had it, my dad's got it,
Yes. For a really long time, most people understood Alzheimer's disease as some kind of inevitable consequence of aging or bad genes in your DNA. But we now understand that no more than 2% of all Alzheimer's cases are genetically inherited.
Huh.
2% at most have.
So you could have 5 people in your family have it, and you still have a 2% chance of getting it from them, the gene. Is that right?
Well, this is in the whole population. I think if 5 people in your family have Alzheimer's disease, you want to get tested for genetic mutation.
Now, is it because of the diets they've been eating? That's the reason why they're getting it? Or is it because they're going to get it no matter what?
Well, so for 2% of the population is genetically determined. For 98% of the population is multifactorial. So there are a number of factors that really matter, including your genetic background, not in a causative way, but more, there are genes that give you blue eyes and genes that give you brown eyes. And there are some genes that negatively impact brain health and genes that are protective. So it's a combination of things. But then medical history is supremely important. Lifestyle is huge, and environment. They really all matter. And what we have found is that hormonal aging, your hormones, are also incredibly important, especially for women. So it's what I was telling you. So for a really long time, people would say to me, women live longer than men, and Alzheimer's disease is a disease of old age. So obviously, more women than men have Alzheimer's disease. But what we have shown is that, yes, women live a little bit longer than men, 4.5 years on average.
4.5 years.
But we tend to develop Alzheimer's disease at a younger age than men. And this is...
Why is that? What is, you think that's more...
It's menopause. Well, it's one of the reasons, at least the reasons that we are looking into pretty much all the time at this point, is menopause. And it's literally that during menopause, we lose the superpowers of estrogen, and the brain goes through quite a transition. You can see how brain energy levels literally change in women's brains. Connectivity changes, the white matter volume changes, blood flow changes, everything kind of changes. And for some women, it's just a phase. It's just a transition. The brain adjusts. There's a new baseline. There's a new normal. We move on.
Some women would. How long does that transition take? Is it months? Is it years?
No, it's years. It's years.
So you might feel this brain fogginess for a couple of years, and then it should balance out.
Yes. For some women, however, the symptoms of menopause don't go away. It may turn into something more serious, including a higher risk of Alzheimer's disease. So basically, we start developing these Alzheimer's plaques. Not all women, this is not universal, but some women with a predisposition to Alzheimer's disease start developing these red flags for Alzheimer's disease in their 40s and 50s. So much earlier than we have thought before. And then, of course, think about it. So you're going through menopause and your brain is changing and it really needs support. And you're eating poorly, you're not exercising, you're not sleeping, you have a ton of stress. Those factors all really work together against you in a way. So I think it's really important for men and for women. I would say women really need to start thinking about that in midlife, that our brain is like a muscle. There are things that we can do to make it stronger and more resilient. We can exercise it properly, we can feed it properly, we can take care of it properly, and your brain will perform so much better for you at any age. And men and women need to do slightly different things.
What are the different
not so
things?
Slightly. So, for example, for some women, we have a lot of patients who come to us, they learn so much more about their brains and their risk factors. And then some women will start taking hormones, hormonal replacement therapy.
Is that
and I
good
have
or
a friend of mine. It's really case by case. Some women swear by it. Some women swear at it. They really hate it. It does not work. It doesn't help at all. For some women, it's a godsend. And I think it's really important to have a conversation with a doctor, not just your menopause specialist, but I think also brain doctor. And we're not there yet. I now work at the intersection between neurology, neuroscience, and women's health, which is a very unusual space, a very interesting space, but it's also a very challenging space. And I think my hope for the future is that we'll start looking at women as organisms, as a person, right? Not like you go to the endocrinologist to look at your thyroid, you go to the OBGYN to look at your ovaries, then you have to go to a brain person to look at your brain. I believe in integrative medicine. I think that we're moving in that direction.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
Might be a problem here, but it's affecting something else. It's all connected. Yeah.
Yes. So I think that is really, really important. But however, hormonal replacement therapy really doesn't work for all women, and there is no recommendation to use it for Alzheimer's prevention yet. We're working on it. We're hoping that we'll find a good way to help integrate these therapies in a safe way for women. But sorry, I'll just make this point.
Go ahead.
I would say that, the point of hormonal replacement therapy is that you want to give women the estrogens that the body is no longer making. But where are these estrogens coming from? Because plants make estrogens. So estrogen is the most ancient of hormones. And that means that it can go across species. So plants make estrogens, animals make estrogens, women make estrogens. And estrogens from a plant, phytoestrogens, enter a woman's body. And if you consume these plant-based foods often enough, that's effectively a very gentle hormonal replacement therapy over time, which is one of the reasons that people think that a Mediterranean style diet that is more plant-centered is beneficial for women's health, because women on this kind of diet have a much lower risk of a number of things, from cardiovascular disease and stroke to depression to Alzheimer's disease, dementia, and also they have fewer hot flashes and they don't suffer from menopause the way that so many American women do.
Now, I've heard from different scientists and nutritionists about meat being a complete protein and having like these nutrient dense within the meat.
Yeah.
But I'm hearing you say that plant-based has just as many nutrients and proteins and antioxidants and all these other things. What are the benefits or the cons against eating quality meat, let's say, for brain function and brain health? Are there things we should look out for if we do have a lot of meat or some meat in our diet?
It's a really interesting point. I think so many people right now are eating a lot of meat. There are a lot of diets out there that really support and encourage eating good quality meat, but quite a lot of meat. I would say the research points to plant-based diets as being healthier overall and more protective.
For the brain?
I would say, yes, for the brain, but I think also in general, there aren't that many dietary recommendations that include a lot of meat. I think every person is different, but to your point, there's no need to eat meat to obtain complete protein. It's an easy way. It's definitely convenient for you if you're not an animal. It's a good way to obtain complete protein just in one small amount in a small portion of food. To obtain the same amount of protein from plant-based foods, you need to eat more of those. But there are some plant-based foods that are actually quite rich in protein, which are interesting, like hemp seeds, complete protein, tempeh, complete protein, nutritional yeast, complete protein, and also a good source of vitamin B12. So I think fish is a good source of complete protein that's actually been linked time and time again with a lower risk of dementia by almost 70%.
If you could only eat 5 foods every single day for the rest of your life.
Oh my gosh.
To optimize brain health, brain functionality, longevity, support memory, all those things.
Yes.
What would those 5 foods be on a daily basis?
I would say, well, you don't like berries, but I would definitely go for berries because they're rich in fiber, they're low in sugars, and they provide really an enormous amount of antioxidants for a small serving size. And there's evidence that consuming 2 to 3 servings of berries per week really slows down cognitive decline in both men and women, and especially in women. So you might want to try something.
Man, I got to start. Which berries, which 2 or 3 berries are the best?
Blackberries actually have more antioxidants than even blueberries.
Huh.
So that's an interesting type of berry. They're not as easy to find as blueberries, but you can get them frozen, and they're still quite intense.
Now, is it if it's a modified blackberry where it's frozen, it's put in a smoothie and blended, it's in liquid form, does that all still matter, or do you need it?
No. I don't think
raw form, or is it doesn't matter?
No, cooking. So cooking destroys vitamin C. Vitamin C, all the antioxidants are really easily damaged by heat. So freezing shouldn't reduce the antioxidant capacity by too much. Obviously, you don't want them to be frozen for 10 years. I mean,
Sure. So we got blackberries, blueberries.
Blackberries are great. Goji berries. They're one of the most concentrated sources of vitamin C. There's a kind of plum that I haven't been able to find. It's called kakadu plum, which seems to be the most powerful concentrated source of vitamin C on the planet. I know they have been in Australia and Pacific Islands. I've never seen it here, but I would like to try it.
Okay, so we got berries, number 1. What would be the second?
Mulberries are really good.
Mulberries.
Anyway, berries. Sorry, I'm still.
I actually had mulberry tree in my backyard in Ohio growing up, and I would eat some mulberries every now and then. So maybe I'll get back into mulberries.
That could be nice. You can also find them dry.
Okay.
Right?
Dried mulberries will work too.
Yeah, they're very good. They're very tasty.
You still have the nutrients when they're dried.
Yes, a little bit less than the fresh ones, but they're sweeter when they're dry.
Okay.
I grow them in the garden.
You?
So that's really nice. Yeah.
And those are high in antioxidants.
I would say.
Those are high in antioxidants?
Yeah, they're high in antioxidants.
Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, so we got berries is what you
get the berries. And I would go for dark leafy greens.
Okay.
Because they're really important. They contain a ton of phytonutrients, which are really good. They have antioxidant, anti-inflammatory properties, and a lot of fiber. And fiber is really important for a number of reasons. The most obvious being that it supports gut health, obviously, and 70% of the immune system is in the gut. So eating fiber also supports immunity, which especially now is a huge concern for everyone. But also fiber has a really important modulatory function on sex hormone binding globulin, which is what regulates flow of hormones inside the body. And so it really helps support hormonal health as well. So I would say 2 reasons to eat fiber and go for your leafy greens. And there's a ton of greens, and we don't have to eat kale all the time. There are so many other varieties that are just
spinach and arugula, all those.
Yeah, all the lettuces, all the different microgreens. There are collard greens if you like them. But also cruciferous vegetables like cauliflower. Now is the season, so cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, Romanesco. They're yummy. I'm sure you eat veggies.
I eat those. I eat a lot of veggies, yeah.
There you go.
Okay,
That's
so we got
those are the first 2. Well, I would throw some polyunsaturated fatty acids there, that the omega-3s, whether from fish. Do you eat fish?
Yeah.
Right. So in that case, for those who do eat fish, then the smashed fish. So salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, herring. Smash fish.
Yeah. All right.
So those are really good sources, very concentrated sources of DHA.
And if you didn't get that from fish, what would be the substitute you would do plant-based?
Well, for me, plant-based. So omega-3 is from hemp seeds, for sure. Flax seeds and flax oil, walnuts, almonds, chia seeds, and also seaweed. I don't know if you like seaweed. I love
seaweed. I eat those little
The naughty sheets.
Yeah,
right?
the little sheets. I can eat those for days.
I know. So good. Yeah.
That's good for you then, huh?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Iodine, they're a good source of many nutrients, many minerals.
It's not what I tell you to eat that's important. It's what I tell you not to eat. So the first thing is don't eat grains, period.
No grains.
No grains. And that includes rice, that includes corn. I just gave a paper at the American Heart Association 3 weeks ago at the Lifestyle and Epidemiology annual meeting where we looked at